شكرا جزيلا. اسمحوا لي في البدء أن أبدأ بشكرك سيدي الرئيس على التقدمة والمقدمة، وأن أشكر أيضا البروفيسور سامويل غودفروا وزميلتي الدكتورة كريم مزوين والدكتورة وئام جسومة من فريق العمل الخبراء الذي سوف يعمل على مواكبة اجتماعات لجنة الدستور الغذائي المعنية بالملوثات في الأغذية. وفعليا الهدف من هذه التقدمة اليوم هو إطلاق هذه المبادرة، إطلاق ورشة العمل للتحضير لاجتماعات وللتحضير لمواكبة اجتماعات اللجنة الفنية للدستور الغذائي المعنية بالملوثات في الأغذية. اسمحوا لي إلى أن أنتقل إلى اللغة الإنجليزية لمتابعة my presentation. So during this presentation, we will start by introducing, we will briefly recall the outcomes of the 14th session of the CCCF. We will recall also the main decisions related to CCCF in the Codex Commission 44. And we will be presenting to you the priority agenda items which were highlighted and which the expert group will try to work on in the preparations of the meetings and of the next meetings during May 2022. In fact, if we start briefly by recalling the main decisions of the Codex Committee on Contaminants and Food in its 14th session last year, the main decisions were about levels of cadmium in cocoa and chocolate products, also some decisions about lead in different food commodities, some decisions also about total aflatoxins and ochratoxin A in different food commodities, and about methyl mercury in fish products. If we recall some decisions about the cocoa and chocolate products, the CCCF 14 agreed on about chocolate and cocoa chocolate containing or declaring less than 30% total cocoa solids to advance the maximum limit of 0.3 milligram per kilogram to step 8 for adoption by the CAC 44. For chocolates containing or declaring between 30 and 50% of total cocoa solids to advance also the maximum limit of 0.7 milligram per kilogram to step 5/8 for adoption by the Commission. For cocoa powder containing or declaring 100% total cocoa solids on a dry matter basis, the CCCF 14 agreed to postpone these discussions in order to allow for more data collection. Also, some code of practices were discussed and were advanced. Let's say the COP for the prevention and reduction of cadmium contamination in cocoa beans for adoption also at step 5 by the CAC 44. And a lot of other discussions, as I said, related to lead in different food products, related to total aflatoxins and ochratoxin A, related to methyl mercury and others. So if we go directly to the meeting, the last meeting of the Commission, the CAC 44, the Commission adopted as a final adoption the maximum level as suggested by the CCCF 14 for cadmium in chocolates containing or declaring less than 30% total cocoa solids on a dry matter, so the maximum limit of 0.3 milligram per kilogram. Some reservations were noted on this decision, mainly by the European Union, Norway, Egypt, Switzerland, and Ukraine. Another final adoption also for the chocolates containing or declaring between 30% and 50% total cocoa solids. Also, as suggested by the CCCF 14, the CAC 44 adopted the maximum limit of 0.7 milligram per kilogram at step 5/8, and some reservations also were noted. Another adoption in a final stage by the CAC 44, the revision of the Code of Practice for the prevention and reduction of lead contamination in foods. So the CAC 44 adopted this Code of Practice at step 5/8. In addition, the amendment to extend the maximum limits for lead in fruit juices and grape juices in the general standards for contaminants in food and feed to cover infant and young children were also adopted, noting some reservations also. Another adoption at step 5 by the CAC44 related to the Code of Practice for the Prevention and Reduction of Cadmium Contamination in cocoa beans. So CAC44 adopted the Code of Practice for the Prevention and Reduction of Cadmium at step 5 and endorsed the extension of the timeline for completion of the work to CCCF15. And some new work also were adopted. Some proposals for new work were adopted by the CAC44 meeting, maximum limits for methyl mercury in some fish species, and the Code of Practice for the Prevention and Reduction of Mycotoxin Contamination in cassava and cassava-based products. So, if we can see, that was a brief recap about the suggestions of the CCCF14 and the final adoption or the adoption at step 5 by the CAC44 Codex Commission. Now, if we take a look at the website, and we can see that the agenda for the 15th session of the CCCF is already published, with some also supplementary documents to be consulted on the website. Now, when studying this agenda item, and based also on the last meeting organized in Dubai last September, and also on the main topics of interest for the Arab countries, we are suggesting, of course, for your approval and for your kind discussion, to focalize our work in the next step on the following agenda items. And if you please, we will be delighted also to listen to your suggestions in order to amend this choice. So if we take a look at the agenda items, we can see that always we have some items related to cadmium, mainly in agenda item 5 about the 100% total cocoa solids. Agenda item number 6 about the Code of Practice for the Prevention and Reduction also of Cadmium Contamination in cocoa beans. Now, if we take the agenda item 7, which we think is very important also for the region, it will deal with maximum levels for lead in different food commodities. Also, the CCCF will study it to advance it to step 4. On the methyl mercury, agenda item 8, maximum levels for methyl mercury in certain fish species, and agenda item 13, also regarding methyl mercury in fish. Another pack of agenda items also, which we think they are of a high interest for the Arab region, related to total aflatoxins and ochratoxin A. So here we have 4 agenda items and a lot of supplementary documents to be considered in our preparation related to maximum levels for total aflatoxins in cereal and cereal-based products, and ready-to-eat peanuts and associated sampling plan, of total aflatoxin and ochratoxin A in some dried chili, paprika, ginger, and other herbs and spices, and Code of Practice for Prevention and Reduction of Mycotoxin Contamination in cassava and cassava-based products. Also, we highlighted two additional interesting agenda items, which we think we could also study. We could also give a critical analysis and a critical opinion on, which are the agenda item 15, related to the guidance on data analysis for development of maximum levels and to improve data collection in general, and agenda item 16, regarding the review of methods of analysis for contaminants. And here also we have already a related document published on the website and the page related to the CCCF. So for this purpose, and of course after our discussions and your approval, we suggest to create a group of experts constituted jointly by ETSMO and the G-Force. And I think, and I hope you already received the call for experts by email in 3 languages, in English, Arabic, and French. The main purpose and activity of this expert group to be constituted will be to perform a critical analysis of these agenda items that I previously presented, or others, as you can or you may suggest, deliver opinion, recommendation based on scientific and technical arguments, and preparation of summary reports to be shared with you, translated to 3 languages, in French, Arabic, and English, in the framework of the preparation to the CCCF meetings next May. And as also Professor Samuel stated previously in his presentation, we will try to benefit from an endeavor that we launched since approximately 6 months after the Dubai meeting, in order to create a database for the Arab countries, in order to collect data on contaminants and residues in food, mainly. And fortunately, we advanced a lot in the preparation of this database, and we already covered all published data related to the 22 Arab countries related to heavy metals and trace elements in food. So we will try to benefit of this huge database, particularly related to cadmium, lead, and methyl mercury, since they are important agenda items for the next CCCF. So we will try to benefit from this huge amount of data in order to hopefully perform some exposure assessments, some risk profiles for the Arab region, and we can discuss it, of course, and we hopefully will discuss it during our next meeting as scheduled on the 19th of April. So please allow me kindly to remind you about the call for experts, دعوة لترشيح خبراء للمشاركة في أعمال التقييم التي تنفذها G-Force في إطار المبادرة العربية للدستور الغذائي. So we have a deadline this next Friday, the 8th of April 2022, and I would like to highlight and to mention that after the selection of experts and the creation of this group, all experts will be remunerated, of course, in line with their corresponding experience and with the adopted G-Force rate. So thank you so much for your time. This is my presentation. And please, we will be delighted to answer any question and to discuss any point as evoked during this presentation.